Welcome back. We're continuing to make progress on our Duramax engine reassembly. We've got a considerable amount of work done on the 48 Chevy build, and we're very close to putting the engine and drivetrain back into the frame. As it is with a lot of aftermarket parts, the quality control and tolerances are less than desirable. And the bridge piece for our Duramax is no exception. In trying to put in the air intake temperature sensor in our new bridge, we were quick to find out that the threads were quite a ways off and this was not tightening in at all. So what we're doing is we're putting in a thread insert to repair that. So I've already drilled it. I'm now going to run the tap down so we can put in the thread insert. And then we should be able to put in our air intake temperature sensor and then we can put this onto the engine. After drilling it out using a 13/32 drill bit, I'm now tapping the threads for the insert into the pipe. Here you can see the insert is just about all the way in. Just need to turn it down a little further until it's below flush. There's a small imperfection in the casting. We're going to file that down before installing the sensor. Since we're deleting the EGR, we need a spacer for one of the brackets, so why not use a piece of the original EGR? Here we're getting the remainder of our fuel lines in place.
Like they're in, but they're not as far as I think they should go.
That one has a big head.
One of the broken return tees for the fuel line broke off inside of this injector, so we're removing it. Now with the injector back in place, we can put on our new return line tees and clip them in. Here you can see why we cut the end off of that EGR so we would have the correct spacing for the pipe bracket. Now we can put in our new intake Y-bridge. Here James is adding some detail to our transmission just like we did with the engine. We're a ways from putting the cylinder head on our block, but we want to get the surface cleaned up before we put it over our nice clean frame. It's finally time to disconnect the block from the engine stand. It's necessary to clean the threads of paint in the bell housing before installing the transmission. Some of you will notice that we're putting the bell housing on prior to the flywheel, and that's because some of the bolts for the bell housing are internal. It's very rare, but we would not be able to get to those bolts if the flywheel were already installed. So it makes the job a little tougher, but that's how it has to be done.
I'm using a blind hole puller to remove the bushing from the rear of the crankshaft.
Alright, put your head right in my way.
I'm sorry.
With the new bushing in place and the flywheel installed, they're busy tightening the bolts and folding over the locks so that they don't vibrate loose. You can see here that bolt is torqued down. He's just about got it folded around that corner.
We'd like to thank CarQuest for donating the clutch assembly for our build. I'm putting in the alignment tool before tightening the pressure plate.
Here they're using a flywheel turner to hold the flywheel while the pressure plate is being tightened. The clutch alignment tool comes out and the transmission is ready to go in. The transmission mounting is odd as well, as 2 of the bolts are external and 2 of the bolts are internal. So we're not ready to bolt it in place quite yet, but this is what it's going to look like when it's sitting in the frame. We'll get the entire driveline hooked up. Next time on Bulldog Builds, we'll be much further along on our Duramax diesel engine project. We'll get back on our Z1R and get more of the chassis together, and we should have the entire driveline bolted in tight on the frame to the 48 Chevy. See you next week.